The night my husband let another woman walk into a ballroom wearing my wedding ring, he believed I was unconscious upstairs and too weak to stop him. He was wrong. My name is Vivian Mendoza, and before that night ended, I would take back my name, my company, and the life they had been quietly stealing from me. I woke with a pounding headache. It felt as if someone had struck the inside of my skull with a hammer. The lamp beside my bed was still on, filling the room with a weak yellow glow. My tongue tasted bitter, my arms and legs felt too heavy to lift. For several seconds I did not know where I was. Then I saw the open door to my dressing room. Every rack inside was bare. The champagne-colored gown I had ordered for the Grand Horizon Group charity gala was gone. My diamond earrings were missing. So was my grandmother's gold bracelet, the emerald necklace I had promised to donate to the auction, and the engraved invitation bearing my name. Vivian Mendoza Albright. My wedding ring was gone too. I tried to sit up, but the room tilted, my stomach twisted, and I fell back against the pillows. Mrs. Albright. Mrs. Higgins stood in the doorway holding a glass of water. She had worked for my family for more than 15 years. She was usually calm, even during emergencies. That night her hands were shaking. "What time is it?" I asked. "Almost 8. The gala had begun 30 minutes earlier." Mrs. Higgins lowered her eyes. "Miss Brenda told everyone you became ill," she said. "She said she would attend in your place so Mr. Christopher would not be embarrassed." "Christopher left with her?" "Yes, ma'am. Brenda Vance had once been my closest friend. 8 years earlier, Brenda had lost her job and her home. I paid her debts, welcomed her into our guest house, and found her a position at Grand Horizon. She called me the sister she had never had. Then she began copying my clothes, my perfume, and even my stories. Soon, Christopher was taking her to meetings and business trips that had once included me. Everyone saw what was happening, but I stayed silent. I told myself I was protecting my son, my marriage, and the company my father had helped build. But lying in that bed, barely able to move, I remembered the last thing that had happened before I lost consciousness. Brenda had entered my bedroom carrying a cup of chicken broth. "You look exhausted, Vivian," she had said. "Drink this and rest. I'll make sure Christopher doesn't complain about the gala." I had taken the cup from her. I remembered the bitter taste. Then nothing. "Where is the cup?" I asked. Mrs. Higgins pointed toward the nightstand. "I did not touch it. Do not wash it. Put it in a sealed bag. Use gloves. Master Luke came by earlier," she said. "He left this on your desk." A folded note rested beneath a black queen chess piece. "Mom, do not be afraid. The performance has only begun." Under the words, Luke had drawn a queen knocking a king from a chessboard. Luke was 18, quiet, and almost impossible to surprise. He had studied business since childhood and watched people more carefully than they watched him. Christopher saw only a withdrawn boy. He never understood that Luke noticed everything. My phone vibrated. A private link from Luke appeared on the screen. When I opened it, a live broadcast of the gala filled the display. Christopher stood at the center in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. Brenda held his arm. She was wearing my gown. My diamonds sparkled at her ears. My grandmother's bracelet shone on her wrist. My wedding ring was on her left hand. A red carpet presenter smiled into the camera. "Mrs. Albright looks magnificent tonight." Christopher heard the mistake, but he did not correct her. Brenda smiled and waved as if my name, my belongings, and my marriage had always belonged to her. "Mother." Luke stood in the doorway wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. A tablet rested in one hand. His expression was calm, but his eyes were colder than I had ever seen them. "Why aren't you at the gala?" I asked. "Because watching that woman pretend to be you would have been a waste of my time." He sat beside me and unlocked the tablet. Dozens of folders filled the screen: bank records, security footage, audio files, and legal documents. My mouth went dry. "What is all this?" "Proof," Luke said. "Brenda did not only take your clothes tonight. She has been moving company money, manufacturing evidence against you, and paying people to follow you. She has been trying to convince Dad and the board that you are unstable." He showed me photographs of ordinary client meetings taken from misleading angles. Brenda had sent them to Christopher so he could accuse me of an affair. I had explained every image, but he had pretended not to believe me. Now I understood why. He had wanted an excuse, not the truth. Luke opened another file and played an audio recording. Brenda's voice filled the room. She was speaking to a private investigator. She asked how a person could be made weak, forgetful, and confused over time without attracting attention. The investigator told her he wanted no part of it. The recording ended. My hands went numb. She planned to make you look incapable of managing your affairs, Luke said. Tonight's broth was meant to keep you away from the gala. Later, she intended to pressure you into signing documents while you were confused. Did your father know? Luke looked at me for a long moment. He knew they planned to force you into a settlement tonight. I do not yet know how much he knew about the broth. The word yet frightened me more than a direct answer would have. On the screen, Brenda laughed beside my husband. For 2 years I had mistaken silence for grace. That night I understood that silence can also become permission. I looked at my son. What have you planned? Luke's face did not change. A way to make sure they cannot bury the truth. My body was still weak, but my mind had become clear. I'm ready. Luke gave a small nod. Then he lifted his phone and made one call. Begin the operation, he said. On the live stream? The ballroom lights dimmed as the charity auction began. No one inside that room understood what was about to happen. Neither did I. But for the first time in years, I was no longer afraid of the truth. Mrs. Higgins helped me into a chair while Luke continued reviewing documents on his tablet. After water and a bowl of plain soup, some strength returned to my body. Along with it came anger, not wild anger. Not the kind that makes a person scream or break things. Tell me everything, I said. Luke opened a financial report. Over the last 6 months, Brenda redirected $68 million through 3 shell companies. One is registered in the Cayman Islands. One is in Miami. The third is in San Francisco. I stared at the numbers. How could she move that much without being detected? She used corporate accounts dad approved for hospitality and special projects. The payments were divided into smaller transfers, then disguised as consulting fees, event costs, and international development expenses. How did you find them? One of the firms processing those accounts belongs to an investment fund in which I hold a significant interest. I looked at my son. Part of me still remembered the little boy who slept with a stuffed dinosaur under his chin. But the young man beside me was not helpless. He was disciplined, prepared, and far more powerful than Christopher realized. How long have you known about the missing money? 6 months. About Dad and Brenda? Almost 2 years. My heart tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because every time I tried to warn you, you defended him. Luke opened another folder. It contained copies of emails Brenda had sent to 3 members of the board. In them, she described me as emotional, forgetful, and unable to handle stress. She claimed I had made reckless financial decisions and had become obsessed with imaginary threats. She was building a case to remove you from the foundation and from your voting position, Luke said. Dad planned to support her. Why? Luke looked toward the open dressing room. Because if you lost control of your shares, he could merge Grand Horizon with Benton Capital without your approval. The merger would give him a large personal payout. I knew about Benton Capital. Its chief executive, Marcus Benton, had been pressuring Christopher for months. I had opposed the merger because it would destroy hundreds of jobs and place the company under heavy debt. Christopher had accused me of being sentimental. My father had taught me that a company was more than numbers on paper. It was people, families, and promises. Christopher had forgotten that lesson, or perhaps he had never believed it. Luke showed me a draft declaration stating that I was mentally unfit to manage my affairs. 2 doctors' names appeared at the bottom. Have these doctors examined me? I asked. No. One is connected to Benton Capital. The other owes Brenda money. They were going to come home after the gala. Luke continued. Brenda would find you confused. Dad would tell you the family was worried. They would place papers in front of you and say signing was the only way to protect Luke. They were going to use you against me. Les. I walked slowly into the dressing room and opened the lowest drawer of the wall safe. Beneath old property records and family photographs was a black folder I had not touched in years. The scent of old paper brought back my father's voice. Lawrence Mendoza had been one of the most respected corporate attorneys in California. He was patient, careful, and almost impossible to deceive. When Christopher and I met, Christopher was ambitious but deeply in debt. His company had potential, but it was close to failure. My father invested in him. He introduced Christopher to banks, investors, and clients. He helped turn a struggling company into Grand Horizon Group. But my father never trusted him completely. Before allowing our marriage to proceed, he required Christopher to sign a strict prenuptial and shareholder agreement. I opened the folder. One clause stated that proven adultery, fraud against the marital estate, or an attempt to wrongfully remove my voting authority would trigger an immediate transfer of specific shares and voting rights to a trust controlled by me and Luke. My father had built a legal wall around us. I had simply forgotten it was there. Your grandfather knew, I whispered. Luke took the document carefully. He understood Dad better than we did. Is this still enforceable? Mr. Davis reviewed every clause. Raymond Davis had been my father's most gifted student and later his law partner. He is waiting at the hotel with certified copies, Luke said. The transfer notice has already been delivered to the company's registered agent. What do you want to do? He asked. I want my name back, I said. I want the truth spoken where everyone can hear it. And I want every employee who could lose a job because of that merger to know who tried to sell them. Luke nodded. Then get dressed. I did not choose another evening gown. I wore a sharply tailored black suit, a white silk blouse, and simple heels. I pinned my dark hair away from my face. I used no heavy makeup. I wore no jewelry. When I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw Christopher Albright's humiliated wife. I saw Lawrence Mendoza's daughter. Our driver was waiting outside. During the ride to the hotel, Luke made several calls. He confirmed the legal documents with Mr. Davis. He ordered a backup livestream to be activated. He spoke to a digital forensics team and asked them to preserve Grand Horizon's servers before anyone could delete files. You should have been studying, making friends, and enjoying your life, I said. You should not have been cleaning up our marriage. I wasn't cleaning up your marriage. I was protecting my mother. His voice remained calm, but pain moved behind his eyes. I reached for his hand. I'm sorry you had to become strong so early. He squeezed my fingers. I'm sorry you believed being strong meant accepting everything. By the time we reached the Grand Horizon Hotel, Brenda was standing on stage beside Christopher. A presenter held up my emerald necklace and announced that it had been donated by Mrs. Albright. It was the last gift my father had given me. Luke adjusted the burgundy tie I had bought him for his 18th birthday. You'll use the service elevator, he said. Mr. Davis will meet you upstairs. And you. I'm entering through the main doors. Alone. A faint smile touched his face. No, Mother. I'm bringing the truth with me. I have been arranging this chessboard for 2 years. Tonight. The game ends. I watched him walk toward the main entrance, while I carried my father's agreement into the service elevator. Mr. Davis was waiting when the doors opened. He was in his early 60s with silver hair and the same serious expression I remembered from my father's law office. When he saw me, his face softened. Vivian, he said. Your father would be proud. At that exact moment, the ballroom's main doors opened. Luke entered. The ballroom fell silent. Luke walked between the tables with Mr. Davis's 4 investigators behind him. Cameras turned in his direction. Investors whispered. Christopher stared at him as if an unexpected witness had entered a courtroom. Brenda's hand tightened around the microphone. Her other arm remained linked through my husband's. The gown she had stolen no longer looked elegant. It looked like evidence. What are you doing here? Christopher demanded. Luke stopped below the stage. I came to help you, Dad. Luke climbed the steps and accepted a second microphone from the nervous presenter. Good evening, he said. My name is Luke Mendoza. I am the son of Christopher Albright and Vivian Mendoza. I have proudly used my mother's family name since childhood. Tonight, I am here to correct a serious misunderstanding. Whispers moved through the ballroom. Luke turned toward Brenda. First, I would like to thank Miss Brenda Vance for attending in my mother's place. She is wearing my mother's gown, my mother's earrings, my grandmother's bracelet, and my mother's wedding ring. She has also allowed the public to believe she is Mrs. Albright. A wave of shocked voices rose from the guests. Several people recognized Brenda immediately. Others began asking where I was. Christopher moved toward Luke. Leave this building. I'm not finished. Luke removed a black envelope from his jacket. Tonight, 3 sets of records are being released to the board, the company's auditors, and the proper authorities. Cameras flashed. The first contains evidence of a 2-year affair between Christopher Albright and Brenda Vance. It includes hotel records, private messages, travel invoices, photographs, and witness statements. Christopher's face hardened. The second contains banking records showing that Miss Vance redirected $68 million through accounts and companies connected to her. Brenda stepped back. That's a lie. The third contains a certified prenuptial and shareholder agreement signed by Christopher Albright. Under its terms, adultery, fraud, and an attempt to unlawfully remove my mother's voting authority activate a transfer of controlling voting rights to a trust managed by my mother and me. The ballroom erupted. Guests stood. Reporters rushed toward the stage. People lifted phones to record. Luke pointed toward the emerald necklace displayed near the auction table. That necklace was not donated by the woman standing beside my father. It belongs to the true donor and the true chairwoman of the Mendoza Albright Foundation. The curtain at the side of the stage opened. I stepped into the ballroom. I wore no diamonds, no evening gown, no mask, only my black suit, my own face, and my father's agreement in my hand. Luke helped me onto the stage. Brenda looked at me as though a woman she had already buried had returned. "Vivian," she whispered. "Do not say my name." My voice was quiet, but the microphone carried it through the room. Mr. Davis joined us. "My name is Raymond Davis, attorney at law," he announced. "I confirm that the documents presented tonight are authentic. Notices concerning the transfer of voting authority were delivered before this event began. Legal action has also been initiated concerning the misuse of corporate and marital assets." Christopher stared at me. "Vivian, please. We can discuss this privately." "You had 2 years to speak honestly," I said. "You chose silence every time she replaced me." I removed another document from my bag. "This is my divorce petition. It was filed this afternoon under seal. As of tonight, I no longer intend to be your wife." For 1 second, the room was completely still. Then applause began near the back. It spread from table to table until the entire ballroom seemed to shake. Christopher looked stunned. He had expected pity, confusion, perhaps even fear. He had not expected me to leave him. Luke returned to the microphone. Christopher Albright's supplementary corporate cards were suspended at 7:30 this evening. Several accounts have been frozen pending review. The board will meet tonight to decide whether he remains chief executive. Brenda slowly removed my grandmother's bracelet. Her hands trembled as she placed it on the stage. Then she removed my earrings and wedding ring. Luke picked up the bracelet with a clean handkerchief. He wiped it gently and fastened it around my wrist. "What belonged to Grandma is back where it belongs," he said. Only then did tears fill my eyes, not for Christopher, not for Brenda. For my father, who had built a shield before I knew I would need one. For my son, who had refused to let me disappear. And for the woman inside me, who had almost forgotten her own name. I faced the presenter. "The auction may continue, but correct the donor's name." The presenter nodded quickly. Luke and I left the stage together. In the hallway, Christopher caught up with us. "What do you want?" he demanded. "Do you want to destroy me?" "No," I said. "You destroyed yourself." I simply stopped hiding the damage. Brenda rushed toward us, the hem of my stolen gown dragging across the floor. Luke raised his phone. "Would you like me to play the recording in which you ask how to make my mother weak and confused?" "Mrs. Higgins preserved the cup, and the investigator you contacted has already provided a statement." Christopher turned toward Brenda. "What is he talking about?" Her confidence disappeared. "You approved the accounts," she said. "And you approved the papers declaring Vivian unstable." The hallway went silent. Then Brenda laughed bitterly. "Tell her how you said the merger could not happen while she controlled the trust. Tell her how you ordered me to keep her upstairs tonight." Christopher's phone rang. The finance director reported that major investors were selling. The banks were reviewing the company's credit, and the board had called an emergency meeting. Christopher leaned against the wall. Then Luke's phone vibrated. A message had arrived from the security team at our house. His expression changed. "What is it?" I asked. "The office camera," he said. Mrs. Higgins remembered the date Brenda photographed Dad's documents. The team found archived footage. He played the video. Christopher and Brenda were standing in his home office 6 weeks earlier. The sound was clear. Christopher placed a folder on the desk. Brenda asked, "What if Vivian refuses to drink it?" Christopher replied, "Then find another way to keep her upstairs. I don't care how. I only need her absent and confused long enough to sign." My knees weakened. Luke reached for me, but I stayed standing. On the screen, Brenda asked, "And after she signs?" Christopher answered, "We announce the merger. Then she can spend the rest of her life telling people we betrayed her. No one will believe her." The video ended. No one spoke. Christopher looked at me. "Vivian, I didn't know she would drug you. You told her you did not care how she stopped me." I was angry. I didn't mean it. That sentence is what cowards say when their cruelty is recorded. He reached toward me again. I stepped back. The affair had broken my heart. The fraud had ended my trust. But that recording destroyed the final excuse I had made for him. He had not merely watched me disappear. He had ordered it. Davis quietly told the investigators to preserve the video and contact law enforcement. Brenda stared at Christopher. "You said you would protect me." He looked at her with disgust. "You went too far." She shook her head. "No. I went exactly as far as you needed me to go." For the first time that night, I did not feel angry. I felt free. I returned to the Beverly Hills house shortly after midnight. Police vehicles were parked outside. A digital forensics team was working in Christopher's office. Mrs. Higgins sat at the kitchen table with a blanket around her shoulders. I went upstairs and packed one suitcase. I did not take the designer clothes Christopher had bought me. I did not take the expensive shoes or the handbags Brenda had copied. I collected 3 things: my father's photographs, my grandmother's jewelry, and the tiny hospital bracelet Luke had worn as a newborn. Christopher entered the living room while I was closing my suitcase. 2 attorneys followed him. His tuxedo jacket was gone, and his tie hung loose around his neck. He looked at my suitcase. "You're really leaving?" "I left long before tonight. I just kept sleeping in the same house." "Vivian." The recording sounds worse than it was. It sounds exactly like what it was. "I thought the broth would only make you tired." The room became very still. His attorneys looked at him in alarm. I set down my suitcase. "You knew she put something in it." Christopher realized his mistake. "I knew she had something mild. Something to help you sleep. I never agreed to poison you." My voice came out softer than I expected. "You knew. I was trying to save the merger. You were trying to steal my vote. I built Grand Horizon. My father financed it. I protected it. Thousands of employees worked for it. You do not own every life that helped make you rich. If I cooperate, will you ask Luke to stop?" "Stop what?" "The investigation. The share transfer. The board action. If you knew nothing about Brenda's plan, cooperate with the authorities," I said. "If you knew more than you admit, the truth will reveal that too. I never wanted you seriously harmed. Perhaps not. But you were willing to risk it." Outside, Luke opened the car door for me. "Are we staying at a hotel?" I asked. "That won't be necessary." He showed me photographs of a bright apartment in Century City. Floor to ceiling windows overlooked the skyline. The rooms were simple, warm, and full of light. The deed was already in my name. "I bought it 3 months ago," he said. "I wanted you to have somewhere safe to go when you were ready." That was when I broke down. Not because my marriage had ended. Because while I believed I was completely alone, my son had quietly been building an exit for me. Luke held me until I could breathe again. At the apartment, he made tea and placed my suitcase in the bedroom. There were clean sheets, groceries, and even a framed photograph of my father on the bookshelf. "You thought of everything," I said. "Not everything." He looked suddenly uncertain. "What did you miss? How to be your son after this?" The question broke my heart. "You do not have to protect me every minute," I said. You are allowed to be 18. I don't know how to stop watching. I took his hand. Then we will learn together. The next morning, the scandal was everywhere. Every major news station showed Brenda on the red carpet wearing my gown. Commentators replayed Luke's speech. Financial reporters discussed the missing millions. The recording from Christopher's office had not been publicly released, but the board had received it. At 9 o'clock, Grand Horizons directors met in an emergency session. Then Mr. Davis presented the agreement, the bank records, and the authenticated office video. The vote was not close. Christopher was removed as chief executive and suspended from all company duties. The board appointed me interim chairwoman. I did not smile. Justice does not always feel like victory when the person falling was once someone you loved. After the meeting, Mr. Davis called me privately. The laboratory found a sedative in the broth, he said. The amount was dangerous when combined with one of your prescription medications. Brenda had access to your medical information through the family office. My fingers tightened around the phone. Could it have killed me? It could have caused serious harm. Possibly worse, depending on how much you consumed. I closed my eyes. For years I had feared that leaving Christopher would destroy my family. Staying had nearly destroyed me. The investigation moved quickly. The private investigator provided messages from Brenda. The doctors named in the false declaration admitted they had never examined me. One confessed that Christopher promised him a consulting position after the merger. Then came the final surprise. The $68 million had not all gone to Brenda. $20 million had been transferred to a hidden account connected to Marcus Benton, the man behind the proposed merger. Another $15 million had moved through a trust controlled by Christopher. Brenda had stolen money. But she had also been helping Christopher and Benton hide a private payment. The merger had never been about saving Grand Horizon. It was a plan to drain the company, load it with debt, and reward the men at the top. Luke discovered the payment trail. I presented it to the board. That ended the merger forever. 2 days later, Brenda asked to meet me through her attorney. I almost refused. Then I agreed, not because she deserved my time, but because I wanted to hear what a person says after stealing another woman's life and discovering it does not fit. We met in a private conference room. A glass wall separated us. Brenda wore a plain gray uniform. Without my clothes, my jewelry, and my husband beside her, she looked smaller than I remembered. "I'm sorry," she said. "No? You are frightened." Tears filled her eyes. "I never meant for the broth to hurt you. You searched my medical records. Christopher said you were blocking everything. He said you would destroy the company just to punish him. And you believed him." I wanted to. That answer was honest. She looked at my bracelet. "I used to admire you, no. You studied me. You had everything. I gave you a home and a career. And I was still the poor friend standing beside Vivian Mendoza." Her bitterness surprised me. I thought if Christopher chose me, people would finally see me as important. Did they? She looked away. "No." I leaned closer to the glass. "You could have built a life of your own. Instead, you tried to wear mine." She began crying. "Will you ask them for mercy? I will tell the truth. Nothing more and nothing less. You're taking everything from me." I shook my head. "I am taking nothing. I am returning your choices to you." Before I left, she called my name. "Vivian, was it worth it? Exposing all of us?" I turned back. "Ask me again when you understand what silence almost cost me." 3 months later, Grand Horizon Group no longer existed in its old form. The board approved a complete restructuring. We sold unnecessary properties, recovered stolen funds, and canceled the Benton merger. Employees who had feared losing their jobs received written protection. The company was reborn as Phoenix Group. I became chairwoman. 6 months after the gala, Christopher's criminal and civil cases were still moving through the courts. He was not charged with trying to kill me. The evidence did not prove that he expected the sedative to become life-threatening. But it proved he knew Brenda intended to drug me. It proved he helped prepare false medical claims. It proved he participated in hiding money and trying to steal my voting authority. He accepted a plea agreement related to fraud, unlawful financial conduct, and conspiracy. He also surrendered his remaining shares and agreed to cooperate in the case against Marcus Benton. Brenda faced charges for theft, financial fraud, identity misuse, and administering the sedative without my knowledge. She eventually admitted what she had done. I attended neither sentencing hearing. Revenge did not require me to sit in a courtroom and watch them fall. Their choices had placed them there. Christopher sent me a 4-page apology. He wrote that he had loved me, but became resentful of my family's influence. He said every success made him feel as if people saw my father standing behind him. He wanted one achievement that belonged only to him. So he tried to take the company that my father had saved. He tried to take the vote my father had protected. He tried to take my voice, because it reminded him that he had never built everything alone. I stopped reading before the final paragraph. Some damage is too old to be repaired by carefully chosen words. Luke read the letter after asking my permission. "Do you forgive him?" he asked. "I am trying to release him from my thoughts," I said. "That is not the same as excusing him. Will you ever speak to him again?" "Perhaps one day. But forgiveness does not require access." Luke nodded slowly. He was learning boundaries. So was I. Phoenix Group's first full year was the strongest in the company's history. We did not achieve it through a dramatic merger or risky debt. We achieved it by listening to employees, ending wasteful contracts, and rebuilding trust with clients. At the annual shareholder meeting, I stood onstage in front of more than 1,000 people. After the meeting, Luke waited backstage with an envelope in his hand. "Mom," he said, smiling. "The letter from Harvard arrived." My heart jumped. "You were accepted?" "Yes." I hugged him so tightly that he laughed. "Then you are going." His smile faded slightly. "I can study nearby. Phoenix still needs help. The company will survive without you." "You might need help." "I will survive too." He looked unconvinced. I placed both hands on his shoulders. "You saved me when I could not see a way out. But your life cannot become payment for mine. You do not owe me your future." His eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you to be alone. I am not alone. And being alone is not the same as being powerless." He looked toward the stage. "What will you do without me correcting everyone?" "I will make several terrible decisions, just to give you something to complain about during holidays." He laughed. Then he hugged me again. For years, I had believed strength meant enduring everything quietly. I thought it meant keeping a marriage together after trust had vanished. I thought dignity meant smiling while another woman stood beside my husband. I was wrong. Sometimes strength means standing up. Sometimes it means naming the lie. Sometimes it means walking away without asking permission. And sometimes it means allowing the people who love you to help carry you until you can stand on your own. A year after the gala, the foundation held its charity event again. The same hotel offered us the ballroom, but I chose a different location. I did not want the new beginning to live inside the old memory. We held the event in a modern glass hall overlooking downtown Los Angeles. The foundation raised money for legal assistance, emergency housing, and education programs for women rebuilding their lives after financial abuse. Mrs. Higgins attended as my guest. Mr. Davis sat at the first table. Luke flew home for the weekend and arrived wearing the burgundy tie I had given him. Before my speech, he found me behind the stage. "Are you happy?" No one had asked me that in years. I looked through the curtain at the crowd. Employees, friends, survivors, donors, and people who had stood beside me filled the room. "I am becoming happy." I said that was the truth. I walked onto the stage. The audience applauded. For a moment, the lights were so bright that I could not see anyone. Then my eyes adjusted. I saw Luke in the front row. I saw the people who had helped me rebuild. And I began. "My name is Vivian Mendoza." The words were simple. But they belonged to me. I told the audience that control does not always begin with locked doors. Sometimes it begins with small humiliations, financial secrets, stolen choices, and the slow destruction of confidence. I told them that silence can look like peace while fear grows underneath it. Then I announced a new program named after my father. It would provide attorneys and temporary housing to people escaping financial and emotional abuse. When I finished, the audience rose. Luke's eyes shone with pride. Later that evening, I stood alone on the balcony overlooking the city. Christopher had lost the company, Brenda had lost the identity she tried to steal. I had lost a marriage that had ended long before the papers were signed. But I recovered something more valuable: my name, my voice, my life. People sometimes ask whether what happened at the gala was revenge. It was not. Revenge would have meant becoming cruel because they were cruel. I did not invent evidence. I did not destroy innocent people. I did not steal what belonged to them. I simply opened the door and let the truth enter the room. Justice did the rest. Someone may steal your dress and embarrass you for one evening. They may copy your smile, wear your jewelry, and stand beside the person who promised to love you. But when they try to take your place, your future, and your right to speak, silence is no longer kindness. That night, Brenda wore my wedding ring. Christopher gave her my chair. Together, they tried to erase me. They forgot one thing: a queen who returns to the chessboard does not come back to request permission. She comes back to finish the game.